something that Kelly and I personally have just been learning and growing in over the last several years is God leading us into rest. And one thing that you realize as He's leading you in that is just how unrested you were prior. Would you agree?
Yes.
We hear, so many people will be like, yeah, God's leading me to rest too, so I'm going to go on a retreat and
for a week
and rest, or they think that just cutting out a certain thing in their life is God leading them into rest. That's not what we're talking about. God might have you drop a lot of stuff when you're on the journey, but ultimately it's not about what you're doing, it's how you're doing it, what state of being you're in. And it really comes down to how you view the character of God and His expectations of you. As it says, He has ceased from His works and He is inviting us today to enter that rest. As we've grown in this, and we can probably discuss some of our journey here, but since this part 3 pertains to prayer, I just want to share that Kelly and I, as we've gone through this, have had this question in our mind because God's been leading our hearts and speaking to us personally, even to both of us, and especially you lately, saying, hey, I want you to stop praying. Now, some of you listening might think, oh my, that God would never tell you to stop praying. Well, He might if your prayer is in the wrong mindset, if it's the wrong heart, and if that is His way of being able to get you out of that. And really, it's kind of like a detox, So before I even get this going, let me just read the verses. Hebrews 4:11. Let us therefore be diligent to enter that rest. All right, enter that rest. But I want to share Thessalonians 5:17, where it says, rejoice always, pray without ceasing. Now, Kelly and I both had this seeming contradiction in us where we felt the clear instruction to pray without ceasing, and like I said, the seemingly conflicting guidance of the Lord leading us away from what our idea of what that meant. So our idea of prayer was needing to be changed. And that's probably what we need to discuss today, is how has our idea of prayer been changed. And I'm going to say right now that our answer in part came from a video from Liz Wright. So I will share that video. It's amazing. I'm going to share that link in the summary of ours, so that if you want to refer to that, because I can't give credit to ourselves for that. This was such a blessing to hear her describe this.
She just explained that the Greek word translated rest in other places in the Bible is the same word translated pray without ceasing.
Yes.
Because, like she said, I'm like, okay, you're teaching us about rest, and you just want us to be in union and flow from a state of union, flow from a state of who we are in you, and there's no effort from that, So what about the verse pray without ceasing? So that's, what we're both asking the Lord, just like, well, can you help us understand that? And then, bam, we came across this. And that's what she explained, is that word that's translated rest throughout the Bible is the same word
that they use
for pray without
translate
ceasing.
Pray without ceasing.
Because it means you're in a state of union and oneness and rest. And that in that state, you're just in communication all the time. You're just like, it's a flow. It's not like, you're having to labor, that's kind of what what you're usually taught. 99.9% of churches are teaching you have to do. You gotta pray, man. If
You got
you
your
don't,
prayer list. You better go in your prayer closet.
If you don't pray hard enough, man, you ain't gonna get it, and man, you got witchcraft people fasting more than you, so how the heck are you gonna do anything if they're fasting more than you and they're praying more than you and they're doing all this more than you? How in the world do you expect to get anything done? And it's do.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time in prison. I spent a decade in there of doing. I read the Bible all the time. A lot of times 8 to 10 hours a day. To me, I had to at least read it 5 hours a day, and then spend hours praying a day, so it was just like praying and praying and praying. I did that for that whole stretch, and I did come to realize towards the end, I was like, man, it wasn't getting the results, that it was supposed to. And I'm also like, Jesus wasn't doing these things, like he didn't. And then after I got out, I got into, the deliverance and healing and inner healing, all that kind of stuff, and experiencing that on a great level of me doing that for people and also my own experience with that. But I was like, Jesus didn't do this stuff, like he spoke a word and things happen. I just knew in my heart too that when he spoke something over somebody, that he changed them. His frequency, his word was so powerful that he changed them so thoroughly that they wouldn't lose a healing. That they were just different. They're going to be different after that. So I knew that had to be me, or that had to be, that's what he had for me, and that what I was doing and what I was learning and what I had learned is not getting me to the place where I needed to be. I realized the Lord showed me that I was fenced in. I was in a fence. I was blocked in. And yeah, you can do things, you can experience certain things, but you're never going to be consistent, with everything. You're never going to be, making it beyond that place. So the only way to make it beyond that place and get into the fullness and to full maturity is by allowing God to bring you into that rest. So with mine, my experience has been with that is, like she was saying, it took, after getting that understanding and after coming to that, and the Lord, like explaining that through different things, then he started, like, he gave me the experience of rest for several months, and it was just amazing, and then like revealed a lot of things to me, gave me experiences, gave me visions, different things like that. And then after that, it was actually having to bring me into that reality. So that was my reality. So like each time he'd bring me deeper into rest, and I could see how unrested I was. And then I'd be like, oh yeah, let's go now, because you're always, you gotta do. And finally, after several months, I was just like, oh man, this is bigger than what I need to just shut up, and I need to stop, because this is way bigger than what I thought. I have been more unrested than what I thought. And like he was revealing to me after, a stretch of time, that the way that I would come to him was with an attitude, if I do this, then you got to give me this. And technically that's what you're taught. If you do this, if you read the Bible, if you do this, if you pray like this, if you do this, then you're going to get this, and then you have, in the word it says, seek the spiritual gifts, seek this, so it can put you in that do mindset. But if you look at it from that perspective of rest, it changes everything, so that's why, what she was saying is he's in the last couple of years, a big part of him changing me and bringing me into rest is telling me that I can't pray. Meditation was a big thing, and waiting on the Lord was a big thing that we ended up learning, that changed a lot too. Rather than just praying a bunch and asking God for stuff, it was just simply being quiet with him and just waiting and waiting and just waiting until. Just be quiet and just focus on Jesus. And if any thought comes to your head, you just simply remove it. And it can be relentless. but you do that until, and then all of a sudden it's like, then you get brought into a place, you know, like the Lord brings you into a place, and then peace comes and calm comes. So waiting on the Lord was a huge thing that changed things, and that shifted my the way that I came to him, you know. So with him telling me, hey, your attitude is like this, it's like a more like a business relationship rather than just an intimate relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, if I do this, if I pray this much, and if I do this, then you got to give me this. So I was like, man, you know, that's true. Like, I can see that. So a lot of mine has been within that, but then there'll even be long stretches where he'll tell me to not pray and to not do anything. And I'm like, what? You know, like, what do you mean don't pray? He said, don't pray. Don't do anything. Just allow me to work in you and to do in you what needs to be done. And then all of a sudden I'll just wake up one morning and I'll just know that I can actually come to him. You know, that I can, I can come to him in praise, you know, or worship, you know, and, or I can meditate again, you know, and then I'll do that. And then, you know, for some time and have some experiences.
Can I clarify quick something?
Yeah.
So when we use the word come to him, I just want to express on this journey, part of what the Lord's been showing us is that we're already in him and he's already in us. There's no separation. And that's a lot of what rest is understanding that union and seeing all the pieces of, like I said, that theological framework that we build up, that there's separation there, there's separation there. And so when you said come to him, I know what you mean, and I mean we know each other mean, but it's one of those phrases where if we're not, you know, conscious of this union, we can actually think, okay, now is my time with God. And that's what a lot of people view prayer as, is, okay, I'm gonna set this time aside and this is my time with God. And I understand that's really powerful when you can have that time to be conscious and to be waiting on him, talking to him. So it's not to belittle that, but the process in actually entering rest, and this is where the prayer without ceasing is getting a different understanding of what that prayer is and what it is, you know, coming to him is you're just conscious. It's your mindfulness of your union with him. So I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt what you were saying.
No,
I just wanted to,
because this is just explain the process. Within that process, there's different, deeper revelations that come. You know, so it was like waiting on the Lord, and then you know, through some meditation, and then like she said, now you know, then he can point out like, hey, listen, because I would, you know, that was the mindset too, you know, like, oh, now I got to go to work, you know, and stuff, and that was when he was like, no, listen, there's no separation. You can't separate your work time from other time. You can have the experience of experiencing union with me, experiencing communion with me all day, every day. And don't separate that. You know, it was a couple years ago when he spoke to me and he said, what God has put together, let no man separate. And when he said that to me, he was instantly, at the same time, giving me, he was telling me that in my mind, I had separation between him and myself. That there wasn't any separation. There never has been. It's only been in my mind. So it's been a process of him removing that separation mindset and separation heart set, you know, wherever it's been in the body, just wherever we have separation, it's him removing that from us, you know. So but to start, it's pray. And then it's like, you know, now he's moved us to like, I don't have to do anything, you know, besides just
love him.
Yeah, and be consciously aware of who I am and allow him to bring me into rest, because I can't get into rest myself. All the amount of striving that I can do is not rest. You know, grace is the divine influence on the heart and the influence in the life. So it's not anything that we can earn. The Bible even says that. If I earn it, then it's no longer grace. So it can sound, it's totally different than what you probably have heard and what 99.9% of churches teach, because they're all teaching you got to do. Also, there's some that can teach you, we already have everything, too. So they can teach that, but there's a mixture of do and then this, do and this. It has to be all rest, and it has to be all God, and it has to be all of it like a free gift accounted to us as righteousness. So that has been the shift of that, because if I know who I am, it's like I don't have to try to be an American. I'm just an American. So God wants us to that point where we don't have to try to be a son. We just are a son. And when we are a son, then everything flows. There's no, you only have this, and he only has this, and they only have that. It all flows from you. Whatever you need, whatever is needed in a situation, that is what you already have, and that's what will flow from you. And it's just going to flow from you. I think the thing that the Lord gave me is kind of like, as a picture to understand, is if you have a spotlight and it's just covered with mud, once you scrape mud away, the light automatically just shines forth. So as he removes separation, and as he gets you out of the doing and the trying and brings you into rest, that light and who he is and who you really are is going to be what just automatically comes forth. So it's a totally different shift. It's a totally different mindset, and it can sound crazy. It even isn't. It's even crazy with the amount of like him telling me to not do is just like, man, it can't be that good. It's like, God, you can't be that good. To just have given us all this, and we just are supposed to rest in you. Like, biblical submission is allowing yourself to be protected and provided for. That's what biblical submission is. Biblical submission isn't just me trying to control somebody, or a woman trying to be controlled, or have to be just controlled by a man or something like that. Biblical submission is allowing yourself to be protected and provided for. It's not putting forth your own hand to do it. So rest is just allowing yourself to be protected and provided for. And how good you say God is how good he's going to be in your life. That's how much he's going to be able to provide and protect you.
Yeah, we are just so programmed to think of the doing, that you and I both in this process, okay, we want to enter rest, but then it's like our minds immediately go, okay, enter rest so that, and then it's the launching pad to the do's. Now, the do's will come, the fruits will come naturally from the rest. That's where it's supposed to come from, and we need to enter that rest so that, I heard a speaker one time say that if there's shame in you, then whatever you're sowing, you're gonna be sowing shame.
Yeah, whatever you create. Yep.
So if we're doing what we consider the works of the kingdom, but yet it's not within rest, well, then we're doing those works sowing unrest within whatever the good it is we think we're doing. And so, yes, there is an element where we want to enter rest so that our fruits are actually, we're sowing true rest in whatever we're doing. But our mind shifts are so programmed to think, okay, and then I'll finally get this rest thing down, and then I can do this. And that has been our process. Where, okay, so then I will meditate, and I'll figure out how to, enter this rest, and it becomes a work to even meditate.
That's why he'll tell me at times that I need to stop everything, because I have now shifted into that attitude, or that set still, again.
Yep. So this is the process that, again, everyone's different. Some of you might not be quite as built or programmed in this way, but if you're going through this process, then this is not abnormal. This is just God, the blessing of him revealing things to you. And he's not impatient with you, and you shouldn't be impatient with yourself. A lot of this process is us realizing that, you know what, we are not as responsible for our spiritual growth as we thought we were. Wow. You know, I used there's a song, you know, read your Bible, pray every day, and you'll grow, grow, grow. And then it says, don't read your Bible, forget to pray, and you'll shrink.
Yeah.
Shrink. Shrink.
Yeah.
Put the terror of shrinking in those kids, you know, in Sunday school. And I mean, awesome. Learn your word. I'm not saying that, you know, faith comes by hearing, hearing by the word of God. So don't take that hook, line, and sinker. But there is an element of that where we had to realize, actually, God's doing a lot of stuff in the word that we didn't see before when people are asleep. He's breaking covenant with people when they're asleep. Adam went to sleep, woke up to Eve. Abraham went to sleep and had a covenant with God. Jacob went to sleep. I mean, it's again and again and again. And then Jesus himself says, this is what the kingdom is like. A farmer goes and plants a seed. And then, does it say he's constantly like trying to work at the seed? No, he says he doesn't even know how it grows.
No.
But there it grew. And this has been our process, is trusting, okay, God is the author and the perfecter of my faith. He is watching over his word, and guess what? We are who we are because we received that word. That's the seed. So his word was received in us. We are new creations. We are now his word made flesh, really, because it's our word coming forth, and he is going to watch over it, just like he makes the earth spring forth and bud. He's overseeing his word within us. He's going to be the author, the perfecter, the finisher of our faith. You know, when I was a early Christian, I had a dream where I was in a school and I was trying to find my classroom. And finally I saw my classroom, and the only distinct thing I could see was it had a sign above the door that said almonds. Now, I've shared this testimony before, and I'll make it short in this video. But I went many years. The Lord showed me that it was about his word, and he was going to watch over it to perform it. But somehow in that I missed the translation about God watching over his word to perform it. And I figured I had to make sure that I was learning everything I could and growing all that I could. And then somehow he would perform his work in me. And it's a very human thing to think that it's us that is accountable to work all this out in us. But honestly, it says even faith is a gift, so that no one can boast. So a lot of this process of rest is just realizing, you know what, this isn't me working on my own here. This is just, the main process is just trusting like a little child that, hey, he's working in me.
Yeah.
He's working in me.
Yeah.
And it's not about the prayer lists and trying to please him and make sure that you are praying as much as you're supposed to be, unless you shrink, as the song goes. It's just he wants communion with you.
Yeah. If you look at Jesus' life, I mean, what he did, and we're to be as the risen Christ, so that's who we're to be as. But when Jesus walked the earth, I mean, he simply just spoke.
Mm-hmm.
He simply spoke a word. He said this, he said that, that's it. Like, he didn't try. He was in a state of rest. He knew who he was. And when we know who we are, it's the same way. And they're like, oh, Jesus went off and prayed the whole night. I don't believe he just sat there and just, I believe he went there and was actually able to just spend time with the Father.
Mm-hmm.
Spend time with the Father, spend time with angels, and just hang out and have a good time, being in the Spirit. That's what he was doing. The reason why we don't really see that or understand that is because that hasn't been our experience.
Yeah.
And that needs to change. That's why there's a big shift right now, because that needs to change. We have been so far away from what God has us to be, and it's because of these things. It's because of religion. It's because we've been working towards it. It's because we've been trying and trying and trying, and we haven't been in rest, and we don't know who we are, and separation is what's been taught. It has all kept us in this state of perpetual immaturity, and never coming to the fullness of the stature of Christ. It says we're supposed to do greater works in him, and we're not even doing the works that he did, so what in the world, and the only way that is going to happen is through rest and through understanding who we are and that oneness with him, that union with him.
Mm-hmm.
So that changes everything, it should change your prayer life, and that's what it has. It's changed the way that we've seen God. It's changed the way that we've seen ourselves. It's changed the way that we come to him, and just like you said, we just realize that we are one with him.
Mm-hmm.
And just accepting that and allowing him to deal with things in us that say differently. So
one of my first I'd say realizations that God was trying to reveal what rest is like in my life was I was going through a health concern. I've had many of those in the past. I've been extremely healthy for, I'd say, 6 years now. I've been delivered, and it's been amazing. But in the past, if you hear me talk a lot about health concerns, it's because I had plenty of them. And this particular one, I wasn't all for going to the doctor, because my faith was that I'm healed in Christ. So I can't say with certainty whether this was life-threatening or not, but the situation had the potential to be life-threatening. And so the position and the training I had received at that time was to go into the whole spiritual warfare mode and, probably do a long fast, and probably, you got your whole spiritual planning, worked out in order to conquer this situation. But the Lord interrupted me, and he told me very specifically, I don't want you to pray about this. And it really threw me for a loop, because I was like, this is probably one of the more serious things that I could be facing, and yet you don't want me to pray about this? Like, it seems... I didn't quite understand at first, but through that process of me now, I can't say that I was like in fear a lot, because again, I had a very good foundation of trusting in the Lord for this. But there was still obviously times where things would rise up, and I would feel the need, like, well, I better declare something over this, or I better ask the Lord. And I started to have to question, well, why do you feel like you need to do that? And I couldn't really come up with a better answer than, well, what if he forgot, like, is he paying attention to this because it's not gone?
We don't trust him.
Or maybe if I add this, then that will be the breakthrough. And where does it stop? Like, how much do we have to add to the salvation that he already paid for us? Because nowhere do I find Jesus saying, well, if you pray for fast for 40 days like I did, and if you pray for this long and have your list and your arsenal that you need to do, then you'll be healed. Instead, it's all yes and amen in him, and it's already done. So I found myself more and more having to face the question of, well, why do I feel like I need to do this? And oftentimes we'll repeat the same prayer over and over and over again, when we should know in the word it says that pagans will do that. They'll repeat the same thing over and over again. Why do we feel like we're supposed to do that? So this is part of the, misunderstanding of the pray without ceasing. Do we think that we have to declare? And really what he showed me is that I didn't have so much faith in him. I had faith in my own faith and faith in my own spiritual workings. Faith in my own actions, my works. And that's not what we're supposed to be operating from. I wasn't trusting. I grew in that. So it was an amazing lesson that he was just introducing me to this. But I had to face within myself how much I didn't think his eyes were really caring about my situation. I thought he was just a distant father that I had to perform a whole bunch of stuff in order to, prove to the spiritual realm that I was serious, or prove to the enemy that I was one of his, God's children that should be listened to. It's just amazing how we are so exposed in our viewpoints that really show us how little we trust in God. And if you've got a lot of works and feeling like I need to fast, I need to do this, maybe God will lead you to that. I won't come against that. But if we feel a need to, in order to get what's already been purchased for us, it's already our inheritance, it's already a part of us, then we have to ask ourselves, why do I think like that? When I was an early Christian, my understanding of God was, He is my advocate, He's done stuff for me, and it's more like legally He's done things, but I have to enforce them. But hey, He's on my side, and I would pray, and it was kind of like He was a distant figure. It's like the president. He might sign some things into action for me that I can take and have benefits from, but I don't really know him that personally. Well, as I grew and I grew in him, it became less and less of a legal contract, but I'd realize, hey, he's always with me. And I'd start to actually picture him more, but he was still like my Father who art in heaven. And I think of it as I come boldly before his throne, but his throne being in heaven. And what I have been realizing and growing out of that is that even that can create a picture of separation in our mind. Because when I was picturing, okay, I'm going to come boldly before the throne of heaven, I was still thinking of myself as an earthly being, when really we're seated in heavenly places. So for you, for instance, God gave you a revelation that really you're always in heaven. It's not a step into heaven, step out of heaven. But for me, it's different, and neither one is wrong. For me, my prayer life has changed into just having my heart be a homing device, because I can, when I put my consciousness to my heart, I can sense his presence there.
Because the kingdom's within us. So everything is within us. It's not out there, it's right in here.
And so when I say prayer, I don't even necessarily mean, I'm not talking usually most of the time. It's simply, like I said, it's my homing device. And I ground myself in that. It says, abide in him. So that is a very different view of prayer than what I used to have. It used to be, okay, my Father who art in heaven, I will come boldly before your throne, and then I will say, come with thanksgiving, so I'll have to, tell him what I'm thankful for, and then I'll have my list. You have not because you ask not, so I'll ask him for what I, might want or need, and for other people's needs. But now it's just an understanding, like Jesus said, God knows you have need of these things. So I just bring myself, like I said, it's more of an inward reflection, knowing that he's in me and feeling that unity. That's just how it is for me. Like I said, he thinks of it a little bit different, so this is not the hard and fast rule. But it's a very different view than what I used to have. It's a communion. And there's something very just secure and tangible for me when I experience that. Yeah, it's the intimacy. Just to recap, we started this video saying, okay, let's rethink about what our idea is of prayer. And if we're taking the Bible verse, pray without ceasing, and making it something that we have to strive to do, ask ourselves, well, what do we feel we're having to do that for? Who are we if we, feel like we have to do that? Are we going to be displeasing God if we feel like that? And ultimately, it just changes your whole idea of prayer. Every one of these videos, our point ultimately is to speak to you about intimacy. The prayer without ceasing is simply unceasingly understanding that you are in him and he is in you, that you are to abide in him. Abide in him. Always. Right? Okay. Well, amen. Thank you.